AI is everywhere, right? But let's be honest, it can feel like this super confusing mess of terms. So, what we're going to do here is break it all down. We're going to create a simple map to make sense of this whole AI universe. Ready? Let's dive in.
Think about your days so far. You've probably already used AI, maybe without even realizing it. I mean, every time you ask ChatGPT something, or when Netflix uncannily knows exactly what movie you want to watch next, even just a simple Google search, it's just part of our lives now.
But how does all this stuff actually work? You hear these letters all the time, right? AI, ML, LLM. They're just thrown around constantly. What's the real difference between them, and how do they all fit together? Well, that's the mystery we're about to solve. Okay, so the best way to think about this is like one of those Russian nesting dolls. You know the ones. We're going to start with the biggest, outermost doll, and then open it up layer by layer until we get right to the very center.
All right, first up, that biggest, outermost layer, the entire AI universe.
So, at the highest level, artificial intelligence, or AI, is really just this massive umbrella term. The whole idea is to build systems that can do things that normally require human intelligence. You know, stuff like reasoning, learning, making decisions, all that.
And this is a great way to think about it. Saying you do AI is kind of like saying you do physics. It's not just one thing. Physics has astrophysics, quantum mechanics, all these different branches. Well, AI is the exact same way. It's a massive field of study.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. See that? We're starting at the very top with artificial intelligence. From there, we're going to dig down, peeling back each of these layers one by one.
All right, time to open that first doll. Our first layer inside the AI universe is machine learning.
So, what makes machine learning, or ML, so special? It's all about how it gets smart. With old-school programming, you'd have to write rules for every single possibility. With ML, you don't. You just feed it a whole bunch of data and let it figure out the patterns on its own. It learns from experience to make predictions.
And there are basically two main flavors of this. First, you've got supervised learning. This is where you give the machine data that's already labeled with the right answers. It's kind of like giving a student a bunch of practice questions and the answer key. Then you have unsupervised learning. Here, you just dump a bunch of unlabeled data on it and say, go figure it out. It has to find the patterns all by itself, with no answer key.
Let's make this real. You know your spam filter in your email? That's a classic example of supervised learning. It's been trained on tons of emails that humans have already marked as spam or not spam. But what about your Netflix recommendations? That's unsupervised. Netflix isn't looking at a label that says, you will like this movie. Instead, it's just finding patterns and grouping you with other people who watch similar stuff.
Okay, now we're going another level deeper, into a type of machine learning that really changed the game, and that's deep learning.
The whole idea behind deep learning is that it's modeled after, well, our brains. It uses something called artificial neural networks. Just think of them as layers and layers of connections, kind of like neurons, that let the machine process information and spot really, really complex patterns in huge data sets.
And to see just how powerful this is, think about a bank. They want to catch fraud, right? But it's literally impossible to have a human look at every single transaction. But with deep learning, they don't have to. They can just label a tiny little piece of the data, say just 5%, as fraud or not fraud.
And this is where the magic happens. The model takes that tiny 5% sample and learns what fraud looks like. Then it applies that knowledge to the other 95% of the data that's unlabeled. It basically teaches itself how to spot the bad guys across the whole system. Super, super efficient.
Okay, this brings us to the very center of our nesting doll, the core of the map. And this is where things get really wild. This is where AI stops just predicting things and starts creating things. So think of it this way. You have two kinds of AI. The first is discriminative AI. Its job is to classify stuff. It answers questions like, is this a picture of a cat or a dog? But then you have generative AI. It doesn't classify, it creates. You give it a prompt like, hey, generate a totally new picture of a dog, and it does.
And that is a huge deal. This is the moment AI becomes creative. We're not just sorting anymore. We're making brand new text, brand new images, even music. Pretty much anything you can imagine.
So how do you train one of these things? Honestly, the best analogy is training a dog. It happens in two steps. First, you have pre-training. This is like teaching a puppy the basics. Sit, stay, fetch. The model learns general knowledge from a massive dataset, basically the entire internet. Then comes fine-tuning.
This is where you take that generally smart dog and give it specialized training with specific data to become, say, a police dog or a guide dog. You're turning a generalist into a specialist.
And you see these generative models everywhere now. Of course, there are the text-to-text ones we all know, like ChatGPT. But that same core idea powers image generators like Midjourney and DALL-E. It's behind the new text-to-video tools. And it's even an AI that can do tasks for you, like automatically summarizing all your emails. It's the same fundamental tech.
All right, let's take a step back. We've opened all the layers of the nesting doll. Now let's put it all together and look at the whole map.
And there you have it. It all starts with a giant field of artificial intelligence. Inside that, you have machine learning, which is all about learning from data. A really powerful type of ML is deep learning, which uses those brain-inspired neural networks. And right at the very heart of it all is generative AI and large language models, the creative powerhouses behind the tools we use every day.
So if there's one thing to really take away from all this, it's this. These large language models, or LLMs, aren't just cool new apps. They're more like platforms. Think of it like an operating system that you can customize for almost any industry. A hospital can fine-tune one on medical records to help doctors. A law firm can fine-tune one on legal documents. The potential is just massive.
So there you go. You now have the map. You can see how everything from the broadest idea of AI connects all the way down to the creative engine in your favorite app. Now that you know the lay of the land, the only question is, where are you going to explore next?